All right, y'all, I am going to give it about 15 more seconds and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so here we go again, y'all. Dr. Mister of Soaring Physical Therapy. So we are going to go ahead and continue our conversation on just educating the public. Okay, I know this isn't physical therapy. We will get back to that, I promise. But this month, March, is National Women's History Month. And so I just want to celebrate it because SO of Soaring Physical Therapy stands for Strength of a Woman. And that was the original idea of Soaring Physical Therapy. I wanted to really just focus on women's health and pelvic floor. But I met someone who changed my mind and said, you got to expand your market in order to stay in business. So, and I agree. So that's how Soar and Reap was born. But Strength of a Woman was the original name and it's still a passion of mine. And so this month, the word is empowerment. I want to empower women. Again, it's National Women's History Month. So why not? Okay, we'll get back to pelvic floor and physical therapy, I swear. But today, I wanted to bring on a dear friend. Her name is Miss Cindi. And before I bring her on, and her daughter, Morgan, they want to share their story. So let me read you Cindy's bio. After spending several years as a volunteer coordinator and department director with a local nonprofit, Cindi completed her studies as a clinical professional pastoral counselor. Subsequently, she became certified as a coach, trainer, and speaker with the John Maxwell team, specializing in behavioral profiling and personal development. As a John Maxwell certified coach and trainer, she has helped many reach their goals through comprehensive training and personal development strategies. Cindi serves our community in developing its most valuable resource, its people. She frequently speaks and trains at various events throughout the year. Cindi was recently invited to the 2020 Community Leaders Program by the Louisiana Association of Nonprofit Organizations. She enjoys nature, exploring the outdoors, spending time with her family, and collaborating with other leaders within the community. Cindi is committed to helping those around her to reach their highest potential. She is no different with her real estate business. Her commitment to add value to others keeps her striving for excellence, both in service and in building relationships within the community around her. So let's go ahead and bring on Cindi. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
How are you doing?
Doing well.
It's been a minute, right?
It has.
We're supposed to have right. We're supposed to have lunch one day, and then all of a sudden, COVID happens. It hasn't been that. Well, actually, it has been that long.
It has been a very long time.
Wow. But we've still been in communication with each other. So
that's right.
Thank you again for coming on. And Cindi, y'all, she put together a PowerPoint that she wanted to share, and it's about aspiring to just be you. And again, she brought her daughter on, and her daughter is going to share her story with alopecia. And these just two amazing women. I'm just going to stop talking and let you have it. So let's go ahead. Can you bring your PowerPoint up again so I can show you?
Yes, absolutely. Let me share this screen. Let's see here.
Right. It's fun.
But I'm like, let's find it now.
Yeah, no, it wants to. I swear, when it's showtime, things happen, right?
Working fine for us earlier, wasn't it?
It was.
All right, let's get. I'll just do. Let's see here.
Okay.
Found it.
Got it?
Here we are. I'm not.
There it is. And I'm going to share it. You ready?
Yes. Can you see it?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. Perfect. So I wanted to come on this evening and share a little bit with you guys. And so most of you probably that are on here are business women or at least can relate to that. I know I admire so much what you're doing in the community and the work that you're doing with women in physical therapy. And so I want to share a little bit. It's not exactly geared directly only toward women, but it definitely can help us all because we all struggle with the same stuff, right?
That's right.
Most of us, especially with the last year, when dealing with COVID and all the other things that have happened along the way, we all have had our fair share of adversity. Wouldn't you say so?
I agree.
And adversity can actually be a catalyst for learning. And so, in understanding, there are advantages of adversity. And if we're not careful, we can become so overwhelmed with what's going on around us that we don't realize that there are some advantages to it. And so, those are the things I want to share this evening, just to be a source of encouragement to everyone. The first advantage of adversity is it introduces us to ourselves. If we want to truly know ourselves and know who we are, it will introduce us to ourselves. It's actually hard to know what's in a person until a person is pressed. And then we see what really begins to come out. Adversity introduces us to ourselves because it gives us an opportunity for self-discovery. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. The book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, it's a wonderful book if you haven't read it. Very easy read, but it is just jam-packed full of wisdom. So it's what we do with adversity that makes us who we are, and it gives us that chance for self-discovery. Circumstances are the rulers of the weak, but they are the instrument of the wise. See, our struggles and our circumstances can actually serve us. What's wrong, babe? Oh, she's trying to teach me something with PowerPoint. All right. So when thinking about adversity, here's a reframing question I'd like everyone to think about. Think about a time when you have personally learned something about yourself through adversity. Can you think of a time? I sure can.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so push this. Thank you. She really wants me to push this arrow button, so I'm going to do it right.
Okay.
She's a teacher, by the way, a school teacher.
Oh, okay.
The second advantage of adversity is that it's a better teacher than success. How many of you can think of one mistake that you've made in the last 5 years that taught you something?
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably all can. And sometimes, it teaches us better than success when we do have adversity. It's if we want to learn, though. It gives us an opportunity also for learning and for growth. There's a Chinese proverb that says, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. Mm-hmm. Actually, the teacher will come whether we're ready or not. And so it's what we're going to do when the events and the adversity comes our way that matters. Like, stop it. I'll push the button. Another reframing question to think about. What is one area that you've grown in because of hardship or adversity in your life? The third advantage of adversity is that it opens the door for new opportunity. Adversity opens the door. It gives us an opportunity to see things through a different lens. Eleanor Roosevelt said it's a stumbling block for the, let's see, sorry, that says 2-4. That is not right. A stumbling block for the pessimist is a stepping stone for the optimist. So if we're looking at things through the lens of frustration, sometimes the obstacle seems so big that we can't really see what's in front of us by way of opportunity. But adversity has a way of presenting opportunities that if we're paying attention, we will find them.
Right.
So some reframing questions with that. What new opportunities do you see in your current situation? What new needs does the world have that your knowledge, expertise, service, and your services provide for? If we're going to be different and we're going to make our mark in the world, especially as women, We need to understand what makes us different. What is it that we bring, that we contribute, that's different than all of the other service providers around us, than anyone else? What are the ways that we are unique? And that's important for us to sit with and think about. The fourth advantage of adversity is that it gives signal of a potential positive transition to come. A crisis presents opportunity for leaders to make positive change. So we can make positive changes when adversity comes. I mean, if you think about how many things, like I think about marketing and those type of things because I'm in the sales industry with real estate. But when COVID came, I want you to just think for just a moment. Prior to COVID, had you ever seen a face windshield before?
Hmm.
Have you ever seen little tools that opened door handles before? There were so many things, even companies that were producing, they were producing other things were able to quickly jump on, and all of a sudden they began to produce hand sanitizer. They began
Hmm.
to market all of the things because what they saw was a need. And so they tailored what the way that they were marketing and servicing people and were able to present something different that the world needed. And the truth is, when adversity hits, all of us can do the same with whatever it is that we're doing. James Allen's quoted in the book As a Man Thinketh, the life of a successful person is comprised of one transition after another. Being static isn't an option. So change is going to happen. Adversity is going to come. What matters is what we do with it.
That's true.
A crisis presents opportunity for leaders to make positive change. This is my first introduction to this is my daughter Morgan. And she's the one sitting in the front with the towel on her shoulders. And then my younger daughter, Lorelai, you'll see her in the back behind me. And 2 out of 3 of my girls have alopecia. And alopecia is an autoimmune disease that actually, where the immune system begins to attack healthy hair follicles and it fights them off, thinking that they are diseased because basically the immune system is like hyperactive, it's overstimulated, and it begins to attack these healthy cells. So back in Morgan had a big move recently. She moved to Tyler and she is a teacher now there. And some of the triggers, for alopecia, and she'll get into that in just a little bit. Some of the triggers are stress. It can be, sudden changes. It can be food sensitivities, but stress is a big, big factor. And so when she made this move by herself, because, that's a big change, a lot of change in a very short time, she moved out of state. Coming out of COVID, her first year of teaching, moved to a different state by herself, and she's still young. And then knowing no one, I mean, there was a lot of stress involved in that change. And so it triggered, her hair to begin to fall out again. And but Morgan, while she's struggling with that, she's noticing in her classroom, she teaches 5th grade, that there is an issue of bullying in her 5th grade. I mean, she sees it a lot. She sees kids that don't really have a lot of empathy. And she would tell me, Mom, these kids aren't, they don't have empathy. I don't know if they're not taught it or if they just aren't exhibiting it, but they don't understand the concept of another person struggling. And because of the things that she was going through, as we began to talk and we began to, talk through ideas of, how she could maybe handle that and teach that. At one point, the question was brought up, what if you could use this, what you're going through, as a teaching tool for them?
Mm. Yeah.
And it reminds me of the quote Eleanor Roosevelt says, it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. So
Mhm.
instead of sometimes us sitting in what we're seeing around us, what if we look within ourselves and think, what can we do to help that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Morgan, we decided we were going on a trip and going to this what is an adventure park, and it was back in September, I think. And so we rented a hotel. All of our family went, my husband and the kids, and then one of their friends. And so while we were there, I brought the clippers. We decided her hair had begun to fall out so much that she could no longer, style it or anything. And so we had decided that we were going to have a shave party right
Mm.
there in the hotel room. And not only were we going to have a shave party, but we were going to record it.
Mm.
In what do you call that? Anyway, it's that you can do it where it's like a fast movie or something, and they can watch the whole progression. And
Okay.
that way she could take that back to her students and she could begin, to teach them something about empathy. And so
Right.
that is one example of how, crisis will present us with opportunities for us to be leaders and to actually bring about positive change if, we don't try to hide it, and if we're not ashamed of it and we decide, to allow ourselves to use it.
Yeah.
So some reframing questions to think about is, what tools do I possess right now that could be used to solve the problems around me that I see? How can your story or your struggle serve to make a positive impact in the world around you? The fifth advantage of adversity is it can bring profit with the pain if we expect it and plan for it. Pain is going to come. It's inevitable. It will come. We will all feel pain to some degree. And so if we plan for it and we know that those things are going to happen, then it becomes, okay, how am I going to use this?
Yeah.
Um, the only thing guaranteed in life is change, and
Mm.
change often brings with it pain. So, with those moments, how do we use that and let that serve us instead of us serving the pain? So, what will we do with it? I looked up, took a survey of career women in an online group that I was in, and the question was, what do you fear most in your career? What are some things that you fear? Um, and one person, or some of them said, fear of how I'm perceived by excelling in my strengths in the workplace. And this is
Mm.
where we get into, as far as the women part. The women, some of them feared how they were perceived by excelling in their strengths.
Yeah.
So in our culture, and I think it's been this way for a long time. A lot of times we feel like we have to minimize, who we are to some degree in order to not be perceived a certain way, or maybe not excel past someone. And these are real fears that women were afraid of. They had feelings of guilt for loving both their career and family. There's
Mm.
pressure put on women, if they don't choose to just be stay-at-home moms, let's say,
Mm.
and let's say they do have a love of working their career and their family, and they want to do both, but then they feel, guilted or like they're missing out on something. And then some of the women said comparing themselves to other women and feeling inferior. So when you get to the bottom of that, and we as women, we all do it, those were basically the fear of judgment. They dealt with misplaced guilt and comparison. And I think we can all relate to that, don't you?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Eleanor Roosevelt says, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be judged for it anyway.
Mhm. I
People
love
are
that quote.
going to make assumptions, aren't they?
Yes. I love that quote. Yes.
Yes, they're going to. And so
Yeah.
why not be who you are?
Exactly.
And so that every situation that I go into, I remind myself sometimes, I mean, especially, when you're working with the public, I mean, there are times when people are just rude to you, right?
Mm. Sure.
And in those moments, we have to remind ourselves, well, who am I going to be?
Mm.
Who
Yeah.
am I going to be? And so we can still stay true to ourselves, even, in the middle of however someone else is acting.
Gotcha.
Eleanor also said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Mm.
So think about that the next time that you feel like you don't quite measure up to someone. Who's really making you feel that way?
Mm.
Because unless we give permission, they don't have, people don't have the right for that.
Cool.
And she also said, you wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do.
Mm.
So many times we're concerned about what people are thinking about us. And if we only could understand that they're not, they're
True.
just simply not. People are
True.
busy with what's going on in them, what's going on in their lives, and they're just not. So I love those quotes. And I wanted to share those just because she seems like a very smart lady. So the next thing, as we bring this to a close, and I'm going to let Morgan share a little bit about what she's gone through, is one thing we have to really regulate is our self-talk. What is your inner dialogue? See, the most important conversation I'll ever have is the one that I have with myself.
Mm.
The way that we talk to ourselves, this inner dialogue that goes on the inside, that is going to project out. It's
Gotcha.
going to come out in everything we do. So what is our inner dialogue? I want you to start paying attention to the things that you think. I had
Mm.
a repetitive thing that kept coming in my mind. I went through something about 5 years ago that was extremely hard. It was trauma. And coming out of that, I realized that I had picked up this one phrase that because everything seemed to be happening at the same time. So when one thing would rock the boat, I would say this one thing over and over, even if it was only in my head. And that was, I can't do this. I can't.
Mm.
And so anytime I would begin to start something new or try to learn something new, or, I began to shift into different arenas with my career, I would find that when I would reach that, stress point, I would find myself saying, I can't do this.
Mm. Yeah.
So that had to change.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, I can do this, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
There it
And
is.
so that became my replacement dialogue for that. So we all need to think about what is it that you're saying to yourself, because it's going to come out in everything that you do.
That's true.
So some reframing questions. Which did you relate to most out of what those women replied? Was it the fear of being judged? Was it guilt or comparison? And then also, what is your inner dialogue? The greatest work we'll do is on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Growing, and we're always growing. And then the sixth advantage of adversity is that it writes a story. And if our response is right, the story will be good. What is our story going to be? What do we want to be remembered for when we are no longer here? And when we understand and know that, then let's shape and frame our lives today to gear toward that way. So we will be remembered, but we work on that now. Adversity is everyone's, but the story that you write with your life is yours. Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
I love it.
All right. So let's hear from, I'm going to stop sharing this screen so I can come back and we will
Great
move
job. That's really good.
you. And I'm going to introduce you to Morgan.
Hi.
Hey, Morgan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for your time for coming on as well with your mom. She told
Absolutely.
me briefly about, you and your sister and your story. And I was just like, can she come on, please? Because, a lot of people, they've heard of it, but they still don't know a lot about alopecia. So do you mind sharing your story or your experience of, because your mom said you had it younger at a young age and it returned. So do you mind just sharing with us what you've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try to be brief about it.
Okay.
So it's something that I've had for basically my entire life. My mom said that it really showed up when I was a toddler. And was it like 2?
Yeah.
Around 2. And they just started noticing like patches without hair, and just it was coming out. And it was dormant for a while after that. And then I think it resurfaced again about like 8 to 9.
Be every couple of years.
Yeah. And then it would come, I'd lose a few patches here and there, but for the most part I could hide it, and then it would go like dormant again. And it wouldn't come back until when I was about 15. And so we wondered if maybe it was just attached to maybe hormone fluctuations or growth, anything like that, just because it seems to show up at all of those really big changes. And so when I turned 15, it started coming out in patches again, and it would just gradually over the years at that point just continue to fall out. And so again, we weren't sure if it was due to hormones, due to allergies, due to stress. It was just with the autoimmune disease, sometimes they have a hard time pinpointing exactly what it is that causes them. So it was sort of just like, well, here's all of these options, and it could be any one of them. So we kind of had to weed through and learn on our own, what exactly it was. But from 15 to probably 17 or 18, it was just continually falling out, and I'd cover it up for a long time. I was able to just like tease my hair or fix it a certain way, wear like hats and scarves and things to where you couldn't see it, that it was falling out, just because I was so embarrassed about it, and I felt like ashamed of it. Like it was something that was wrong with me, and I didn't want anyone to know what was going on. And then when I was probably 18, I think I was almost 19 at that point. It was so bad that I only had about like really 3 clumps of hair left. I kind of jokingly look back and say I reminded myself of Gollum, from Lord of the Rings, how there's like little stringy bits of hair everywhere. Because it was just all gone except for a few pieces. But I was just so, focused on keeping what I had that I didn't want to get rid of it. And so, sorry, y'all can hear our dog freaking out. And so we ended up going to get a wig. And it was just a long, stressful process of going to fittings, trying to figure out what would look most like my natural hair. And we ended up getting a wig, and I did wear it for about a year. But and at that point, I decided to go ahead and shave my head because I have the wig now. There's no point in me keeping the little bit that's there. And so, but even with the wig, it was one of those things where I still just felt so embarrassed about it. And I was constantly stressing myself out because it was like, oh no, what if somebody touches my hair? What if one of the kids I'm working with like pulls on it and it just comes off and I'm completely exposed here without any kind of explanation or anything like that. And so I was just still living in constant like fear and shame over this condition, even though it was nothing that I had done wrong or anything that I could control. It just felt like, oh, well, something's wrong with me. And, I didn't feel feminine. I didn't feel beautiful because I was just hiding. And I felt like I couldn't even really be myself because I'm naturally just such like a carefree person. I've never really been one to really stress or worry about just looks or like making sure that I fit a certain persona or like look a certain way. And so then for my whole life, basically to just be focused on making sure nobody finds out about this one thing, it was just constant stress. And there was just one day where I was just, I was sick of wearing the wig. It was in the middle of summer, so it was super hot. Like my head is sweating. It just felt nasty. I didn't want to wear it. So I ended up just putting a hat on instead and going to like a church function that we had without it. And that was kind of my first step. And little by little, I would just start to go without the wig more and more. And I ended up posting, on Facebook just for my group of friends and my support group, like what was going on and saying like, hey, this is what I've been dealing with. This is how it's affected me. But I was just tired of living underneath that cover, that was hiding. So once I took that step though, and I started just to go without, like it gave me such a sense of empowerment because it wasn't me hiding anymore. It was me going, okay, this is who I am. This is what is going on with me. And I'm just going to be transparent about it. And I'm just going to have to like own it how it is basically. And over doing that, it really began to change my perception of myself because it wasn't like, oh, you know, I can't be beautiful or I can't feel feminine because I don't have hair. It started to shift and say, okay, even without hair, I am still all of these things. I still have my amazing personality. I still have, I still look nice, you know?
Yeah, you're beautiful. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like, yes,
Thank you.
own it.
But
I love it.
Turn from this victim mentality into just this empowerment and saying, okay, well, no matter what's going on, like I am who I am. And that's people are either going to have to be okay with it or, you know, if they're not, I don't want them in my life. I'm not going to waste my time.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And as far as like treatment, so just the medical side of me, is there any treatments for it or is there any options that they're giving you guys medically?
So I will say for a long time, we did go to a dermatologist and they would do steroid injections like underneath my scalp in the areas of hair loss. And that's one of those things where it does work really well for some people and for some it doesn't. It just depends. Like for me personally, what would happen is it would start growing back, but it wouldn't stay. So it would grow back really fast, but then it would fall out just as quickly. But I know for some people that does work. It just, I wasn't seeing results. So eventually I just got tired of having to put myself through it without seeing any kind of progress.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have found that cutting certain things out of their diet helps as well. So at this point, I am completely gluten-free because I did find out that was one of my food triggers. Yeah. Anytime I ate it, I could tell that, okay, this is not right for my body, like something's going on. And I recently discovered that dairy is one of those as well. So for some people, all they have to do is identify that food trigger and take it out. And that will help the hair to start growing back. Because like my mom said a second ago, it's basically your immune system is overprotective. Right. So sometimes those small things will trigger it to say, okay, something's wrong. And then it will start to cause those hair follicles to die off because it's trying to overcorrect.
And like with food allergy, with the internal inflammation, then the immune system is, what's happening?
It's a little confused.
Yeah, right. Trust me, I get the food allergies. That's one thing, like, because I don't know if you guys know, but May is Food Allergy Awareness Month. And oh God, y'all are going to get tired of me. Like, this whole house is like, okay, somebody, can we eat? Like,
oh my gosh.
Right. So, I mean, it is real. And gluten, that's a big thing. I do understand that personally. I understand. And then with my son, and actually, I realized too, even a lot of people have dairy allergies and not even aware of it.
I was that. I just realized, I mean, at 42, I realized about 4 years ago, I had two horrible migraines that I've had migraines my entire life. Okay. And two of them kind of came out of nowhere within a month. And so I started thinking back to what I ate prior because I'd begun trying to eat cleaner. Yeah. And I'd had those little Sargentos pack that has the nuts and the cranberries and cheese.
Yeah.
So it was the cheese that was doing it. And so I started paying attention to how I felt every single time I had. It's specific to milks. There's a protein in cow's milk called casein or caseinate, and that's what it is.
Gotcha.
So she might have inherited some of that.
Yeah. Lucky me.
All right, so we have a comment. I'll share it. This is just a comment. I totally understand your journey. I've had alopecia since I was 5. It has been a journey for myself, and it continues. Thank you for sharing your strength for others. And that is actually my best friend, and she has alopecia too.
Oh, yeah.
So I told her you guys coming on. She was like, "Please let me know."
Yes.
So thank you for that, Vanessa. I mean, there a lot of people. Again, it's just bringing awareness to it.
Right.
The more we talk about it, the more people understand it, the less fear. Fear drives a lot of people to do things. It's like, why are you afraid? Like, it's not going to bother you. So why,
Right.
but a lack of knowledge and fear of something just makes people sometimes irrational. And thank you for sharing that and just being you. That's what I said. This month is just empowerment because, I've heard people say, well, I don't have the confidence not to go without my wig, or but you are just like, no, I'm done. Like, it's hot. Like, it is hot. And we live in the South too. So
Yeah.
so I applaud you so much for that. So wow. Is there anything else?
We get the
Go ahead.
comment, people think it's cancer, or they think sometimes it's this or that. But we've kind of come at it as an educating
absolutely
issue.
And that's kind of what my students as well, just because I do work in an elementary school, so a lot of the little kids are like, oh my God, just like staring at me, trying to figure out what's going on. It's pretty funny at this point. But with my students too, I just kind of, before I shaved my head, it was in September, so it was Alopecia Awareness Month. I did get a chance to share with them, like, here's what it is. It's something that I actually personally have, and got to really preface it for them and share it with them, and said, hey, just so you know, Miss Estep might show up after break without any hair, so don't freak out. And here's why.
Right.
But they were really understanding about it. It was really awesome experience, and they had never heard of it. So it's one of those things where you really don't realize how common it is, because it's just not talked about frequently.
And she was able to tell them too that, this is my struggle, and you see it on the outside. But so many of you have struggles too.
Yeah.
Like, we all have struggles. It's just some of ours are visible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some aren't. And sometimes I loved what you said earlier about the one thing that you kept trying to hold on to.
Yeah.
Was your hair. Because when you said that, I kept thinking, isn't that the way we are with other things too? It's like we're trying to hold on to control of one thing. And then usually when we let go, and we release control, then we find freedom.
Yeah.
That's right. That's so true. And there was also an NBA player who suffered it, and it was some awareness around him because he had it, but it died down. So of course it goes away if the media don't stay on top of it. But I don't recall his name. I don't know if you're familiar with him either.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. But what were you about to say?
I was just going to kind of what you had said. I was talking to a group of people the other night, and it was one of those things where I was sharing my story, kind of very similar to this, and just talking about how when you're in the middle of something, like when I was losing all of my hair, I really hyper focused on, holding on to what I did have, and like being upset because I was losing something. But then on the other side of it, now I look back and think of how much I actually gained through the experience. And I know one of her points was talking about how, it's crisis is an opportunity to grow and to come out of it with more. And just something that I had struggled with my entire life was self-image and confidence. And so you can imagine just how devastating this was when it first started happening. And now looking back, I just am so thankful for growing in the way I did, because it really forced me to say, okay, no matter what, here's my self-value. Here's what I value about me, and nobody can take that away from me. So it really gave me a sense of confidence and a sense of value that I didn't have for myself before the experience.
Gotcha. Wow. Awesome story, ladies, both of you. Cindi, I met your mom. When I was looking for, I actually just moved here. She's one of the few people that I met at first, and she's, in real estate, and she was helping me, and she's just an amazing woman. Like, I could feel her energy. Like, she is so caring. Like, it's
her. She likes me. Cool.
You meet, come on. Some realtors are just like, they can be kind of standoffish and very like, are you ready to buy or not? But your mom was very patient, very just like, I could just tell the caringness in her. Like, I like her. Then we decided to keep in touch, and it's like, here we are.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so my friend shared this again. That's the name. I'm not even.
Oh, Charlie
Villanueva.
Okay, thank you for pronouncing it right, because I don't know. But
Okay. It
right.
looked
So,
right.
huh?
I said it looked right the way she said
Yeah, she's probably right.
it.
Thanks, Vanessa, for sharing that as well. So,
Yes.
Morgan and Cindy, I appreciate you two for your time, for coming on. And again, this month, you all is Women Empowerment. So we will have another speaker on for the next 2 Thursdays. Next Thursday, we're going to talk to a fitness trainer who doesn't look like a fitness trainer. So she has a story to tell. It's just, tune in for that. I will post that soon. And again, thank you, ladies, so much. Morgan, thank you so much. You are awesome. Cindy, you know how I feel about you.
Oh, thank you for having
Y'all
us.
too. So take care, y'all. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.